Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to Principles of Management Business 223, offered online or hybrid that you're taking with me. Uh, I have a 15 to 20 minute short lecture clip on Chapter 4 that we'll be covering today, Ethics, and this is in conjunction with Blackboard Course Management and McGraw-Hill Connect, and basically just to make sure the PowerPoints and everything else is from our management book, Contemporary Management. Okay, so let's go into ethics. Now, this is an extension from what you learned in Introduction to Business. In Introduction to Business, which is a prerequisite to this class, when you were introduced to business ethics, you were introduced from a personal platform, from me as an individual, what does ethics mean to me. This course here takes it to the next level, even though it's still a personal, I'm still making decisions, but what you'll learn out of this thing is that my decision making, my ethical or unethical decision that I make within an organization has a larger reach than me as a person, my personal ethics. I may affect my family or may affect my close friend. But a company, and then the example they used in the book here when you're looking at the ethical dilemma is what the peanut butter industry. If I look at the company that was listed within your textbook, talking about how it was a sound company, it was an ethical organization. It did a lot of social responsibility that we're covering in this chapter. But what happened because of the economic downturn? They started taking shortcuts. They started bending the rules or policies that they had in place to be the top-notch number one peanut producing company. What happened when they found out that they had a salmonella outbreak? When it came back and it came back to that organization, they found out all the violations and shortcomings and cutting and violating of not only the procedures and also the laws and ordinances that were established because they wanted to keep the company afloat and still keep the same profit margin. So when all this was finally exposed, not only did it hurt that organization is bankrupt, as you have read on, and out of business, but it also hurted the whole peanut industry as a whole. A lot of people lost their jobs. Other than the organization, the trust in the peanuts, it took a little while for people to start buying peanut butter again, or peanuts as a whole. Okay, so we have that. So remember, the dilemma you're going to find out, and I'll pass by here, and they have several things, but let's look at this one. If you had to make a choice, and you were only, these are the choices: a bottle cure for cancer for everyone in the whole population in the world, or to save your brother. Which one would you choose if you only had a choice to do something? Your ethical decision, if you only had a choice to rescue someone, I don't know, it'd be a hard one if you had family or loved one. See, I don't want to put myself in there, but you see how companies have to make those decisions. They have two processes. They have to downsize. Which department do I downsize? Do I just downsize the department in Alabama or do I downsize the department in Illinois? Both of them are going to have one will have a positive effect, the other one will have a negative effect. Both of them are good employees, everything else, but I have to reduce or restructure and become a smaller type. So those are the dilemma as a manager I have to make. Not an easy choice, okay? So now, ethics. Ethics and law. Is everything that is legal also ethical? Is everything that is ethical also legal? That's a tongue twister. What does that mean? In a nutshell, what it tells you, neither ethics nor laws are fixed principles. Both change over time. And let me just real quickly, and I'll use the extreme. If I look at abortion, right? Legally, abortion is legal in the United States. Is it ethical? It depends on my religious background. It depends on my personal values, right? So it could be legal, but it still could be unethical. Okay. Now, what do we mean by corporate social responsibility? We are, from a managerial perspective, from a business model, from what we've learned from previous chapters and everything else, from the capitalistic viewpoint, my alliance as a manager is basically to the organization and to the stockholders or the owners or the company. They hired me. I'm a business. I'm not a charitable organization, right? I'm not a government. Mine is basically to make a profit at a fair cost to the consumers, but still a fair return for my investment. That is the business model. Social responsibilities means that I'm helping other people that basically has no means to either buy my product or has anything to do with my product. But social responsibility, what you're going to read in what you've read in the book going forward, is going to look at, you have social responsibility. Do I give back? What do I give back to the community? What do I give back to my customers? How do I, if I buy products, am I social responsible? Do I think environmentally green? Or am I polluting because it's cheaper? I get more return on my investment and more profit to the stakeholders or to the owners. So social responsibility is not required, but it makes good business sense. If I'm a social responsible organization, because I treat people fairly, not only because they buy my products, but I help them out, and they may never buy my product, but it's the right thing to do. That basically, whether you like it or not from a business perspective, puts a dollar amount on it. People will come to my company like they did with the peanut butter company because they bought their peanut butter because they were social responsible. They give to charity, they give to the boys club, they give to the football team, baseball team, to the high school. They did everything else that is social responsible, and I can't put a price tag. I know you could write some of these stuffs off as a charitable thing on your taxes. But if I buy from one vendor versus another vendor, it's kind of hard to show that kind of a saving. One vendor does in China or someplace else, and I know that they use child labor or they have very long hours or the working condition is not the best. Or I go here to this company, it has everything else, good working condition, everything else, but I select this because I'm looking more for the profit. You see how social responsibility ties in. Now what happens is when the media or activists find out that I'm buying the products from this company that is using child labor or is very unsanitary working conditions or harsh working condition, that basically puts a black mark, for lack of better words, against the whole company. Even though I say, hey, I didn't know, I just bought the product. Our society, because of the technology and everything else, they know everything about the organization. It doesn't make a difference. People will start buying from me. People will start not buying my product. Other vendors will not want to be associated with me. And you can see that when you have a football star that's basically a spokesman for a company. And you have that with Miss Dean, where she had some racial slurs. And all of a sudden, these vendors, right away, they dropped her off the bat because there was bad baggage, social responsibility. Remember, it had nothing to do with the product and everything else, but it did not come across well. So that's social responsibility. The next one, all right, so organization. Ways managers view obligations, decisions to protect the welfare of the stakeholders. And I did all those explanations. So when I'm looking at stakeholders, that's stockholders, I want to protect their interests. I want to give them a good return on their investment. Managers, as a manager, I have to understand I got to protect other managers to make sure I don't force unethical behavior on them or I'm going to fire them. Customers, community, all these are stakeholders that the decisions I make affect every single one of these indirectly or directly, okay? Now, here's a movie on this one, Communicating Job Status, healthcare. I'm not going to go into this. Let's go into approach of social responsibility. As a company, as a manager, right to the meat of this, as a management class, I have a dilemma, an ethical dilemma. It could be a social responsibility ethical dilemma. How do I respond to this dilemma? I could do two things. I could deny or ignore the responsibility, and that's what the tobacco industry did, and we consider that by obstruction, right? So this low social responsibility. The next one, still on the low, and I have a scale, comes in here. Remember this is the degree of social responsibility. I put up a fight. Emission. No, I don't think we need pollution. We're not polluting. If you look at the power plants, a lot of power plants say, hey, if I put all these scrubbers and everything else on these coal plants or use alternative fuel, it's going to cost more. And if I look at right now, and so the government says, hey, it's not going to cost more, but in the long run, I'm looking from the company, it's going to cost more. But if I look at the pollution and effect I have on my stakeholders because they get sick or they get cancer, or they get something else because of my product, because I want to save a few pennies to make a few bucks, is basically a defense mechanism. But that's the manager. Remember, that's the corporate management structure that you're going to be part of this making the decision. So you have these two, what do you call it, approaches to it. Or you could do accommodation. And they talk about the large blue chip companies. These are big organizations. They a lot of times will follow suit because it's good business and they don't like to have bad publicity, bad PR. So they'll accept the social responsibility, respond to pressure. They won't tell you that, but that's what most of them will be. But that's fine. It still achieves the goal. All right, the end, the means achieves the end. Okay. So now, we're most organizations, what we as managers, progressive managers, proactive managers, where we want to be is in this position right here, high. And they talked about McDonald's. And in this chapter, they talked about McDonald's. McDonald's gives a lot back to the community. It does a lot about education. It has, if you have a sick child, you have a Ronald McDonald House. So that is all there. So they take initiative, establish positive model for the industry. What's happening with McDonald's now, as we're doing currently, is that you have, it's not only McDonald's, all the fast food industry, you have people saying that we're not, minimum wage is not enough, we need a raise. So remember, so we'll see how McDonald's responds to this. Now, social responsibility. How much responsibility should companies be socially responsible? Look at it from a personal perspective. I look at myself as a very social responsible individual. I give because that's my tie, because that's just my background. Remember, I'm looking for a personal. But what happens when let's say my hours are cut, or I lose my job, and now I don't have that money to give to causes that I would like to give. All right, so I have to pull back. You have to look at organization also. If an organization is going through bankruptcy, or all of a sudden the sales drop, like it or not, social responsibility aspect is suffering. For what I like to give, I can no longer give because I got to pull back my resources. Like it or not, as a manager, you can't give for something that's not going to, and the other end is basically the company's going to go under. I have to refocus my social responsibility for my employees and my owners and my stockholders until I get out of my dilemma and then go forward. I may minimize. I try not to cut them cold turkey all at once, but reduce my expenses or reduce my giving to that organization. So this is where I like to be. Most companies are in here. This one here, defensive. You got to look at the organization, what's going on, and the other one is basically they have no social responsibility in there. Okay. Now, ethical decision. The book talked about, and you were exposed for that introduction to business real lightly. Let's go on. When we make ethical decision making, we will fall into these four decision approaches. Unitarian rule, the greatest good for the largest number of individuals. I think that's the democratic system. So most of my thinking I'm trying to do, I know I'm going to hurt someone because there's nothing, but the majority of people will benefit for that. So someone has to suffer, but majority will benefit. The other are moral rights. Best maintains, protects fundamental rights of individual. I have the right to freedom. I have the right to religious freedom. I have the right when I buy the product to know that's not going to harm me. So there's some moral rights I have to do. Most people, individuals, when you look at ethics, unless you're really, if you're an unethical individual, you have no moral right. But most people will, this will fit in, and these are the two main ones. Now, the just right, fairly, equitably distributes the cost of benefits among people. If I do anything else, if I look at the justice rule, I try to find, and let's say there's a judgment against me, and I have to pay out. Who do I pay out? I don't give it to one. I try to pay out where I satisfy or recompensate the majority of people the best I can, okay? Now, the practical rule, what decision we review? So if I look at this, in a nutshell, we as managers have to utilize all of them at some point. It's kind of nice. The greatest good, the rights to protect the fundamental right, all of these should be part of our template, our basically the way I look at decisions. I look at them in each one. I look, okay, what's the greatest good? What does it protect it? What's the justice? What's the practical rule? I should go in that order. All right, and that's how managers. What I want you to learn. Their personal ethics is based on research survey. The most of all surveys admitted to illegal and unethical practice in the past years, in which half will you be? It's your choice. Where will you draw the line? If you looked at earlier, so they said like 48% of the individuals did something else unethical. And sometimes it could be me as a manager. If I give piecemeal, I give them rewards and say, if you reach this reward, you could get this extra bonus. And I know there's no way that an individual could do this unless they violate some of the rules, unless they do something to get those goals. And I put the goals in because I don't want to pay out. But they do it. So now, but what I've done, inadvertently, I'm forcing my employees to achieve those goals. Because look, they're barely making minimum wages. That bonus will take care of either a new car or get them out of debt or pay for an illness or whatever. So they're going to say, hey, I really need this bonus. So remember, as a manager, I have to be very careful of how my rules, my policies, my procedures, everything else, that I don't inadvertently create unethical employees, because that's the only way they could achieve it, because they need the job. They need to be employed, okay? So poor ethical decisions, we talked about this. As a manager, it's critically important to consider how are you influencing others by what you do and don't do and what you say or don't say. Remember, people, I may tell them I'm an ethical, social responsible organization, but they can see how I waste, I throw away. They can see all the, remember, the individuals know the company from the inside more than my, what do you call it, my stakeholders do. So if they can say they're just giving me a lot of lip service. If I think that as a company I'm ripping off customers and everything else, but I'm going to say, hey, employees, I love you guys. Come on, I'm not naive. I'm going to rip off customers. They're also going to be ripping me off. Because once someone's unethical, if someone's ripping someone else off, they're going to be ripping up other people down the road, okay? So we have that. Roles as a manager, exerting pressure, such as knowing where to draw the line between motivating to excel and exerting pressure to be, for an individual to be, what do you call it, for lack of better words, unethical, okay? So which ones do you want to be? Yourself. Now look, when I really look at this mirror, you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am ethical. Now here's what I'm going to look at this mirror. I'm going to end with this. I got 3 more minutes and it'll be at the 20 minutes. Most managers, most individuals are very ethical, very social responsible people. Our moral fibers are there. We do not get up in the morning and say, I'm going to take advantage of an employee. I'm going to pollute the environment. I'm going to hurt a lot of people, but I'm going to make the money. I'm going to be rich and be happy. That's not how most managers are. I hope not. I mean, in my life, trust me, I've run into a lot of managers, been in the corporate, a lot of people. You're going to have those people that, just like you're going to have your criminals and your rapists and your, I don't want to say, your thieves and everything else are still there, right? But the majority of people have a moral fiber. The problem happens is that we make poor decisions as a manager. I make one decision and all of a sudden, oh, geez, I made something wrong, and I want my boss to find out, so I'm trying to cover it up. It's only a small problem. And next thing I do, I make another to try to cover it up. I'm doing bigger and bigger. So before I know it, I'm ending up into this big unethical decision instead of just coming right out and say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, please forgive me, it won't happen again, and go forward. But I keep on covering, and next thing I do, I keep on building, and before I know it, I'm in a position that I am unethical. Okay, and if you look at politicians, they're going to say, I'm going to help somebody else. Oh, it's only a few bucks here. I'm going to take a meal. Next thing, I take the meal. I say, okay, now it's a meal. Instead of the meal, I'm just going to take the cash. I'm not. Don't give me the meal. And before I know it, it grows longer, larger and larger. From a managerial perspective, make the right decision. If you made a mistake, if you did something wrong, stand up to it, admit to it, take the punishment, and go for it. You'll have more trust with your employees. You have more respect from outside. If a company did something wrong and did a spill and they came right out and said, hey, the peanut butter or company, if they knew they were the cause of salmonella, they could come right out. We know what the cause. We apologize. We made a mistake. We'll take the ramifications. And now they're going to say, we found the error. We corrected it. We'll pull the badge back. That's what people want to do. People come back to that organization because they figured when they made a mistake, they didn't try to cover up. They were open, what we call transparent. You hear that transparency in government and everything else. We're going to be transparent. Transparent is it's a good goal, but sometimes you can't tell them everything that's going on because you have your competitive edge and everything else. But try to be as much transparent, especially if it affects other individuals. So when you look at ethics and social responsibility, remember as a manager, what I want you to remember is when you read this, look at the case studies, look at the cases. They talk about Apple and China utilizing forced labor or child labor and everything else, and how they responded to that ethical dilemma. So remember, as a manager, I bring my personal ethics, but then I have to look at organizational morals. I have to look at societal ethics. I have to look at personal ethics, and all this I have to come in and look at what's the best thing for the organization and the society. Remember, as a manager, my decisions reach more people at the level because of the responsibility and if I'm a large company, it affects a lot of people more than because of a unethical decision. So going forward, use your values. Remember, if you start shortcoming your ethical values in an organization, you become less ethical. You become dead end. A lot of people say, well, all businesses are doing this, so I'm going to cheat. And if you really look at, there's a series going on, Faking a Grade, where students are cheating online or in a face-to-face class because everyone else is doing. So now there's a dilemma. If I don't cheat, I'll never get into the better school because the cheaters are cheating. So I'm cheating because that's the only thing. And once I get in there, I won't cheat. I'll know it. All right? So remember, ethics starts with you. And how you talk to your employees and everything else. And once you're ethical and social responsible, it makes good business sense. People trust you. They'll always come back to you. You have a brand and you have a loyalty base that won't drop you when you need it. Again, my name is Dr. Jordan Mochocki, and this is Principles of Management, Chapter 4 on Ethics and Social Responsibility. This course is Business 221, offered online or or a hybrid. And this is a quick overview, and I'll see you in the forums when we talk about ethics. Thank you very much. Or in my face-to-face class if this is a hybrid. Okay, bye.